Hi, everybody. My name is Kai Savas, and welcome to another amazing panel. We're here at the Symphony Synergy panel, and we're going to dive into the collaborative process in all across the music department. So let's just jump in and get started. Please join me in welcoming our panelists. First up, we have the legendary music editor who has worked on a vast number of projects across his career, including Vikings, Valhalla. Please welcome Yuri Gorbachow. Hi, Yuri.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So next we have the incredible composer for Disney Plus's The Naughty Nine. Please welcome Kenny Wood. Hey, Kenny.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And last but not least, we have the multi-talented co-founders of Cliff.End Records. Please welcome Dina, Rizvic, and Alan Jones. Hey, you too.
Nice to meet you all.
So I guess to start off, I want to just kind of know everybody's role in what they do, and maybe you can talk a little bit about, kind of what your role is in music or score production, and how you see this as an essential part to the whole kind of collaborative process. Kind of describe what you do. And I think, Yuri, if you want to kick us off, look at music editing and what you do, and where in the collaborative process you sit. Yeah.
Sure. So, as a music editor, there's kind of like a front end and a back end, and I'm involved in all of it, often from the very beginning before a composer's even hired. I work with the composer. Another sort of a geographical thing is I work here in Toronto, Canada, and on the shows that I work on, the composers are based in LA, so I have to help shepherd them through the mix, and so I'll represent their best interests on the stage, and be able to let them know all is good, and then when there's feedback and that sort of thing, then the composers will be able to chime in on some of the musical aspects. But I can just make sure technically it's just solid all the way through. And then there's versioning. There's all kinds of stuff on the back end: cue sheets, paperwork, administrative. It's a handful. It's a full-time job. Happy to do it.
It is, and it's I think a very underrated job. I think music editing is so important, and I know a lot of composers who kind of praise their music editors in shaping everything and helping be kind of the essential partner in that workflow. So yeah, Kenny, why don't you jump in as a composer and talk about kind of your role and where in the process you collaborate.
Sure thing. Oh yeah. I'm a composer, and collaboration happens at every step of the way, and I have the most profound respect for music editors. So Yuri, you're on a very high regard for for how I feel about your profession. So thank you. But yes, as a composer and someone who's come up through all the many ranks of composer, the stepping stones that it takes to get up there, I have done a lot of study and work with teams, and have allocated a big chunk of my time to figuring out how to make teams work better, including the group that I co-founded. So I'll be happy to get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's jump over to Alan and Dina. Talk about Cliff.End Records and what you guys have founded, and kind of the process you guys are building out, and what you guys do. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I mean, as Kenny's right. I mean, it's really important to build the right kind of team around you. I guess Cliff.End Records, we've been going now for about 3-4 years. So we're still sort of meeting people in the industry. We're still putting collaborations together. We are both of us composers, and we're both of us actually interested in the whole kind of chain, if you like, from starting off with talking to the artists to working out what their needs and their desires are, and helping them with producing their production. So I think my role in it is I guess trying to make sure the team is put together and everyone actually realizes that they're equally important. That's the key thing to remember. None of this can actually get out there unless everybody recognizes the value of everyone in this kind of chain. So that's kind of where I fit in. Dina, of course, is the co-founder as well. So
yeah,
that has
like Alan said, every role is important, and my role in this in our company is to make sure that the schedule is going as planned, that the projects are moving along. Alan and I create music together, and we arrange all the recording sessions. So there are a lot of steps along the way in the music production. So I also try to just make sure that everyone is on the line for the music, but so for the music that we are producing, and just making sure that we are getting out the best quality that we can in the process.
Absolutely. Well, I want to jump over to Yuri for just a moment. And Yuri, I wonder if you could talk about the kind of the importance of a composer's first pass on a project, and how was that process for you, like working on Vikings Valhalla?
Right. Right. So I guess I'll start with the music spotting session as a good starting point.
Yeah.
I put the notes together and I send a comprehensive set of notes to Trevor. Trevor will sit down and write the score. And about a week, I'd say a week to 10 days before we hit the dubbing stage, Trevor will deliver what we call his first pass. And it's designed for distribution and to get some notes back. So a creative step that I take when I receive the music is I actually give it a good mix. I have my own studio. I'm a mixer. That was kind of one of my roles for a good decade. And I find it's really useful to be able to do a mix for the showrunner and the executive. So go work the dialogues, make sure every line of dialogue is heard, get the music carved in beautifully, and we send it out. And the thing is that the better this mix, the fewer the notes that come back. And
Yeah.
it's probably the best 2 hours that I get to spend, and it feels really good to be able to collaborate with everyone. The notes come back. It's often they're fewer notes, and the notes are real notes. They're not, oh, the cue is too loud. I don't know. There's something wrong with the cue. Let's just change it. And it gives Trevor a really clear sense of what he needs to do. He then writes his second pass, which gets delivered to the stage. We break it out into stems, and there's very little to comment. Everyone's heard the music. And it just makes the process flow a little smoother. So I'm glad to be able to get that mix in addition to other things.
Yeah, and I bet Trevor also appreciates having a fellow Canadian to work with and send him care packages of good stuff from home.
We went to the same school together, interestingly. Yeah.
Oh, really? Wow, that's awesome. Well, I want to jump over to Kenny now. Kenny, so you mentioned earlier you founded a Facebook group called Teammates that is dedicated to advocacy and fair working conditions for the composer team. And which is something I think we even jumped into talking when we met at the party, just talking about how people, coming up in the industry, that there's certain practices and things that I think the younger generation is trying to change, and people our age are just like coming up in our careers. So I'm curious, can you talk to me more about the work you've done with that group and kind of bring people together?
Absolutely, yeah, and thanks for having me here so I could talk about it.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, the group is called Teammates. It was born 4 years ago now. It's been such a long time. We're at over 3,000 members in the group, and we started off as like you said, an advocacy group for assistants, but now it's kind of turned into this sort of career nursery for composers. So not only can you learn all the team roles that we'll probably get to discussing here, but you can also prepare yourself to take the best steps forward on your way to becoming a composer, just outright. So we're very proud of the group. I have a great team that I work with that moderates it and manages the whole thing. And we just put on a live event last month, which was very successful, and it kind of showed the impact that we're having in the community, and it's been so great. So I can go on for hours about it, but in the interest of time, I'll keep it brief.
Yeah, and I think it's important to. I mean, it is amazing to see people kind of come together and talk. I think for younger composers, a lot of people reach out to me, even though I'm not a composer, I'm not a musician, but I love film music. It's what got me into filmmaking, sent me to film school. But it is such a scary when you're first entering the industry. It's so scary because there is no roadmap. There isn't. You guys, don't have a union. It's kind of like, where do I start? So, and it's true. Every time I ask, how'd you get into business? It's a different answer, which is also amazing too. Everyone has a different path to where they are. And I think it also makes it a lot very diverse as well. But I think your groups like that are very important to kind of help have that kind of guidance for people kind of entering, for sure. But I want to jump over to Dina and Alan. So, you work a fair bit in both traditional music and visual media world. So could you tell us in what ways, I guess Cliffman Records collaborates with and empowers the work of independent artists?
Well, that's a good one. I mean, as I said, we're at the beginning of our journey, if you like. Certainly, from my point of view, I've had another career for most of my life. Been a lawyer. I love music. I was really into music when I was younger, and I fortunately met Dina about 3-4 years ago. Dina will tell you, she's already very well known as a musician. But we started off Cliffman Records because we wanted to actually help people who didn't really have a platform. We wanted to help people to from all through, as I said, throughout the whole process, from actually, what do you do with this song? Does he need a bit more help? Does he need some arranging? Does it a bit more work on it? Are the lyrics quite right? Does he need a visual to make it going? Where do we find an editor? Where do we find a mixer? What is mastering all about? All that kind of thing. And I'm really pleased to say, we're fortunate in this, because we got ourselves nominated just last September for the best independent record label at the HIMA Awards. So that was quite an achievement for us. I don't know quite how we managed it, but I think awesome. what we tried to do was to create really good music. We spent our time creating good music, most of it, a lot of it composed by ourselves and Dina, but also bringing in other artists who didn't really have the, if you like, the finance, the backing, the right resources to make their song, their belief, what they're trying to achieve real. And that's what really ticks my box on this kind of thing, really, to be able to help people sort of start off like that. So that's where we are at the moment, and we hope to go on and do the kind of things that Kenny and Yuri are doing, and sort of like doing more and more work with film and TV. And we're really glad to have the opportunity to be here with you all today.
Yeah, absolutely. Dina, what's it like for you to kind of be in this world and bringing your voice to it, and working with other musicians and artists?
It's all I ever wanted ever since I was studying at Berkeley, and when I was immersed in the multicultural environment with people all over the world and so many amazing talented musicians, and I knew right away that I wanted to hopefully collaborate with as many musicians as possible. And everyone always had the same story, which is whenever they would be signing for a bigger label or a bigger company, everyone already has sort of a vision for them, and they want to box them in certain categories, or what's commercially viable, what's not. And so you kind of lose yourself along the way. And I felt like a strong need to create some platform for them to still be themselves and keep their voice, because they have great ideas. It's just that everyone can find the audience for themselves. It's just putting the effort in and believing in them. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I want to jump back over to Yuri. So Yuri, and you did mention, we talked about kind of what a music editor is and where they are in the kind of the pipeline and the workflow, but maybe some people who are working with music editors for the first time, what are kind of maybe like your top list of maybe like traits or characteristics or things that help you, I guess, do your job better, whether it's from the composer, whether it's on the recording stage? So what are things that like you kind of would like, I wish, if you could like build your perfect like collaborative like wish list, what would it be like in the top things that help you, the music editor, do the best work you can?
Right. Well, a lot of it just comes from experience. I've been at this for a little while, and then you remember something, and then you start working with composers, younger composers as an example. So one good one is don't throw anything out. You present a cue, it becomes part of history because it was heard. And if it gets rejected, go write something else, go do a V2. I'd say finish the V1, stem it out, and send it to me for a library, because it's going to come back. So that's a pretty strong piece of advice, if you don't mind me saying. And then the other thing is the way things are stemmed out, right? To deliver a cue, the cue may be fine, but if the percussion and the strings and the solos are all mixed together, it could become a bit of a problem when you encounter dialogue, because dialogue will win every time. And so instead of just dipping the entire cue, have the whole thing spread out, and maybe it's just a percussion hit, or maybe it's just a little solo that just needs to be carved underneath. So designing a stem layout actually is a little harder than it seems. You have to kind of check in with the re-recording mixer and find out how many tracks do they have. Even though we have unlimited tracks and we've got all these controllers, they might just say you've got 8 stereo pairs. So break out your cue in the best 8 you can. And that's where I kind of sit right in between the re-recording mixer and the composer. And then I can go back to the composer and I can make suggestions. And I can say, depending on your technical output, how do we break this out? And it becomes suggestions. It's not, please do this. It becomes suggestions so that the pipeline is really clear. And now that we're dealing with Dolby Atmos, we need to have those elements isolated so that we can, carefully, of course, float them around the room, or get a nice little bed happening with the music.
Yeah, I'm curious, how did Atmos kind of change your process? Because it was just adding that kind of spatial audio, and because music, I guess in the past, where did music sit in the channels, and now how has it changed with Atmos? I mean, I'm just personally curious, because
it's on one level, things have become very easy. We were doing the 5-1 thing, and so Trevor would send me 60 tracks. He would send me 10 6-track clusters, right? Each one is a 5/1 mix, so that the percussion was in 5/1 and the orchestra was in 5/1. And now that we've gone to Dolby Atmos, we can go back to stereo. Everything can go into stereo now, so that if we want to float something, and you have to be really careful. Like every time I decide to start panning things, you gotta be really careful. But it's nice to be able to spread things out. But instead of having to deliver 60 tracks for 10 5/1 stems, you can now just deliver 8 stereo pairs, and the Atmos mix is built by the re-recording mixer. It doesn't have to be by the composer.
Okay, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I want to jump over. Yeah, I love Atmos, and I have the ceiling firing speakers. I don't have like the ones, but I love kind of my setup. It's great. And well, I want to jump over back to Dina and Alan. So Dina and Alan, you collaborate on various mediums such as film, advertising, and TV. So I'm curious, kind of how do you adapt your creative process to meet the unique demands of different media, different clients, different projects, and did you have to build out workflows beforehand? Like, okay, if we're working on a commercial, this is kind of this thing. Like, do you have something set, or do you just kind of tailor it to each client, each production? Or I'm curious, like, what your workflow is for that.
Yeah, I know a lot of composers work from a certain template that they create, but I find it more useful when I approach every project from a blank page, and I really try to first read the pitch or the script and see what the director or the client is looking for and approach it from that angle. And so I was working in the last few years on a few documentaries, and the challenging thing was to find the underlying theme that would come throughout the whole documentary, which was spread into 4 different episodes. But I found the most important thing is the communication with the director and really getting his idea at the beginning. And then that's going to determine how many versions and things that I need to fix on. But as Yuri said in the beginning, the best part is when you create a good piece of music and you have least amount of revisions that you need to achieve, because then you really know that you got the idea of the director and the whole video. So, but every medium is different, and the most important thing is to deliver it on time, to be as quality as possible, and to be as original as you can while keeping those guidelines in place.
Absolutely. Well, Alan, I'm curious because you said you were a lawyer before. I'm curious, now you're in this world. When you looking at all these different workflows in a project, have you kind of adapted something like that works for you in your brain, or do you kind of mirror what Dina's doing and support that kind of approach?
You know what? I'm still learning here, and I'm learning every moment of this panel as well. I mean, I guess my skills as a lawyer, what do? They help me understand, if you like, what people are thinking, what they want, what they need, what the objectives are. I mean, I get into the kind of like, what team do you need to have to build? As I said earlier, I mean, I love composing. I'm not, I'm not quite up to Dina's standards, but we'll argue about that sometimes. But I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad. But I just love being around people who are really talented and creative. And unfortunately, the music industry doesn't recognize talent as much as things like law or financial services, and that's really gets to me. And I feel that's wrong. There's an imbalance here. And there should be much more recognition of the skills of, talented guitarists, pianists, the engineers, the production, people that understand sound and the way you put sound in together with visuals. That to me is really the essence of what I'm trying to do with Cliff End Records with Dina, is to create great sounds with great visuals. So, what can I say about it? I mean, I'm still finding my feet, but I kind of feel that I'm in the right arena, and I kind of feel that I've got some good skill sets which complement my partner here, Dina, in Cliff End Records.
Absolutely. Well, now, let's jump back to Kenny. Kenny, I want to talk about the Naughty Nine, real quick. I want to talk about what your initial inspiration was for the score, and what elements of the project kind of stood out to you. What spoke to you as a storyteller? What did you gravitate towards, and what helped you, I guess, inform your musical approach?
Sure. Well, kind of piggybacking off Alan here, and his appreciation for being around people and collaborators. That's really what it's all about. So This movie was directed by Alberto Belli, who has been a longtime collaborator of mine, and you know, to me, he's like a brother. We have kids that are the same age that play together all the time. So, you know, he's that kind of person that like I couldn't imagine life without him. And coming together to make this film was kind of like just sort of meant to be, I think. Both of us grew up on the same kind of classic 90s golden era stuff. So, you know, Spielberg and you know, the types of movies that would have a score by Alan Silvestri or something like that. So, you know, we've got the same film idols and musical idols growing up. And this is totally that on display. Like we both got to kind of flex our classic storytelling muscles on this one, and it was a lot of fun. And but you know, what does that sound like for this movie? I haven't answered that yet. So that the story is about 8 kids and a grown-up that fly to the North Pole to steal their presents back from Santa, the ones they didn't get because they were on the naughty list. So it plays like an Ocean's 11 heist movie, but it's got this Christmas drapery over the whole thing. And it was, you know, as you can imagine, it was a ton of fun to put all that together.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I kind of wanted to know, we can just open up some questions to just everyone jump in and talk, and we can go around the, you know, around the panel and add input and everything. But I'm curious, you know, we were talking about kind of collaboration and workflows and building a team and all that stuff. And I'm curious, you know, I think all of you are kind of the glue that keeps things together, especially when it comes down to post and music and all that stuff. So what are maybe some strategies or tips or maybe techniques that you use, like if a communication is maybe like spotted all over the place and people are on different pages, how do you kind of keep people in alignment? How do you bring people together? How do you kind of be that connective tissue between departments or between director and composer or mixer and editor? I'm curious. So maybe Yuri, since I feel like music editor works with so many different people, how do you make sure the communication lines are, you know, I deal with this all too in production systems, working with the entire production team in animation and trying to make sure, you know, the execs are talking here and make sure everyone's kind of on the same page. So I'm curious, from your point of view, what are kind of some things you've learned about it?
Sure. Well, I have my hands full, so this is one that I like to, you know, upload to somebody, and there is somebody who we rely on a lot, and that is a good post-production supervisor.
Yeah,
they've got their finger on the calendar, scheduling. They can move things around. They can really help out, and they can keep information moving. And it's great when information moves. I don't think anyone likes it if it's held back even for a day.
Yeah.
So a good post-production supervisor, we have good ones. Yeah, so you know, something can happen, and we need an extra day before we take the score to the stage, and you know, and they'll make the phone calls, they'll handle everything, and all we need to do is you know, kind of ride the schedule as it's unfolding properly. But when something comes up, don't be afraid to mention it to a good post super, and they will look after it. I acquiesce. I'm not going to be. I have a database and I'm looking at the music, but as far as the database of schedule or the database of who's doing what, it's got to be a good post super.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but for Alan and Dina, like when you're running a company like this or you're on a project, what's the key to good communication in your point of view, and how do you keep people all on the same page?
Can I just pick up what Kenny said? I mean, some of my idols go back even further than the 90s, okay? I can go back to the film Cool Hand Luke, Paul Newman.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Lalo Schifrin wrote the score on that, and it's fantastic. This is a guy on a chain gang. Was he in Texas? Not sure where he was. But basically, the whole thing was he was a cool guy. He had this ongoing row with the prison person. And at the end of the film, he said these famous lines: "What we've got here is a failure to communicate." And then the guy was shot. Poor old Paul was unshot. But I mean, the whole thing is about communication. I mean, and as you said, you know, people want to know within a day, less than a day, what their roles are, what they're doing, what's happening. Is it working? Is it not working? How can we help each other more? That kind of thing. I just think you have to keep in touch. You have to listen. It's very important to listen to people. You're not going to get anywhere in a project unless you're listening. There's no point forcing your own views on things. You have to listen, and you know, you've got to make sure you believe in the project, whatever it might be, and then you have to listen and keep the team working together. So I just take it very simple. I have to always think about that film. Make sure I'm communicating properly, and don't get shot.
And how do you, Dina? I'm curious. Maybe if there's somebody that doesn't, or doesn't know what's going on and somebody reaches out to you, is there like do you look at that and go, okay, there's maybe something broken in the communication chain, or somebody's missing information, or they're just maybe late to the party? I'm curious, like how do you bring people up to speed and keep people in the loop and everything while you're working?
Well, with every project, there's always some new challenges, but I find more importantly, to me, it's more challenging how to motivate some musicians, because not everyone understands the project we're doing, or is not maybe fully in that style. So just being able to keep everyone's energy up, or for example, when we're recording an orchestral piece, and in a few takes, if you don't recreate the environment and atmosphere, you can immediately feel that people are getting a bit tired, and you need to know when to take a break. And so it's very subtle. I guess it's more like a psychology thing than in the end music ability, as far as I've had experience with the recordings I've been doing. But like Alan said, just good communication and ability to motivate is really important in that part.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Kenny, for you, like when you're like, maybe we can talk about, use the 99 as an example. When you started the project and you had to build communication between your team and your director, which you're close with, and like, but maybe that's maybe too easy of an example because you guys are already so used to working together. But I'm curious for your perspective, like building that communication pipeline and making sure that you're communicating your thoughts and your visions and taking in other people's, the directive. So you're all working towards, the creative vision of the film. So I'm curious how you see it.
Right, totally. Well, this goes back to one of my philosophies, which is core to the teammates group that I run, and it's that, having a team doesn't really make your job easier. It in fact, it increases your responsibility. But if you take that seriously and you set a good example of what a good team member is going to be like, you're going to get the most out of your other cohorts. And that's kind of the key. That's how we were able to get through 99, because I had a very small window to get some very big music and a lot of it into this film, and I had the help of a great team of additional music writers to help me get to the finish line. And if not for some stellar communication between all of us, it wouldn't have been able to get done, because of the schedule, we were down to, the very last day of the mix, turning in the final cue. So it was a big race. And like I said, if not for that, that communication we established early on and stuck to it and stuck to our guns, it would have failed.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe you can continue us on, because I think you're on a good line here of our next point of topic, which is, I think, improvisation and experimentation, which I think, there's no set, thing to do any project. Every project is different, every project is unique, and you need time to figure out what works, what's right. So you mentioned kind of being tight under a schedule, and I'm curious for you, how do you make room for experimentation and improvisation, especially if the schedule's tight and you have to make that turnaround? Like, do you have like something in your process where you can, like, we need to at least play around and figure something out if it's not obvious, like, oh, this is kind of the right path to go? So I'm curious, how do you put that into your workflow and your process?
Right. Yeah. Well, in the case of 99, there was so much music to do, so many themes to come up with. It was kind of a luxury in that regard, in terms of, like, if I couldn't come up with an idea, I had another one I could move on to and work on that until I could, get that to be at a working level. So there was a lot of that for that project. But in general, like I said, you establish something at the get-go, you get on board with everyone so that everyone's attentive. Nobody wants to let each other down, so people get their work done right away. You have time to review it, and no one's twiddling thumbs until the last second. That's what paves the way for the magic to happen. And there's a quote from, I think, Quincy Jones or something, where you always leave room, or you always leave enough time for God to pass through the studio. And that's what that means is, like, any kind of extra time that you can give yourself or afford to whatever the project is, an idea will hit you, or some kind of inspiration will occur when you least expect it, at the last possible moment, and it's just something golden that you just apply right then and there. And as long as you've done all the work to allow that to happen, that's what turns your end result into something magical that people remember.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Yuri, for you as in music editing, how does experimentation and improvisation, like, how does that fall into your process?
Sure, I can go a little bit earlier than when Kenny comes on board. So I'm often hired long before the composer is even brought on board,
Yeah.
months even, and we get to talk about temp music, and there's a way to handle it because it can be done incorrectly. So temp music is a reality, right? And I come on board. The picture editor is already throwing temp in. It's being discussed with the execs, the showrunners. I'll either get my own pass. You take 5 days and do a pass with temp. So for the improv and experimentation process, in order to not fall in love with temp, the trick is to experiment and to throw in multiple cues. I'll go, what's the genre? Okay, here's something that's typical for the genre, wherever it comes from, right? And then let's kind of go over the top a bit. Let's see what happens. Let's be subtle. Let's go counterpoint. You know, let's try these different things, and we just keep throwing them out there. And often it's like, no, I don't like that. No, I don't like that, and that's fine. That's fine. But a little library starts to develop, not a library, a database starts to develop. And by the time a composer is brought on board, I'm holding a lot of information on the composer's behalf. So then what I get to do is if we lock or if we're close to locking, I'll then basically hand those notes off and say, here, this is what we learned. Hey, Kenny, this is what we learned, so that you don't have to copy anything. Even though this temp cue could be loved immensely, we could say, but this is what the temp cue is doing. It's got this particular groove to it. Maybe it's got this little bell that everyone loves. Well, you can pop a bell in. It's not, you're not stealing anything. And that way the composer has a springboard to then continue on where the temp left off. And you can bring your own toys to the sandbox, and you can bring your own ideas, but the story and the emotion is you're already set up for it. You're set up for success, right? So
Yeah.
Kind of how I see the role of temp is there's the figuratively and there's the literally. Literal copying is not good, but figuratively, take this to the next level. I think a composer can grab that, just chew on it and run with it, and be able to really come up with something amazing.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to put it, because I think that a lot of composers will lament about temp and temp love and all that. But I've talked to some other music editors where it's like, I would never want to force a temp onto a composer and box them in that way. But hearing you saying set them up for success, I think it's such a great way to look at it, and like say, we figured out what the heart of the scene is, or the heart of this is, and now put your kind of stamp on it. Yeah, that's I love that.
Temp love is an old issue. If it still continues, then we can become enlightened with newer techniques. But it's not that bad. Temp music it's good. It's real. It's like a catalog, right? You look at the catalog. I want to buy a sofa. I want to buy a blue sofa. Look at everything that's already out there, and then in this case, you get to design your own sofa and put it in your house. So
yeah, that's a wonderful way of looking at it. I love that. Yeah. So for Dina and Alan, what's kind of in your workflows? How does improv and experimentation kind of flow into your creative processes?
Well, before Dina answers that question, I want to get Yuri's number after this session, because I need that kind of help with what we're doing. I really need it. So, sorry, Dina.
Yeah. Well, we work a lot with jazz musicians as well, and jazz is based on improvisation mainly. So I find myself sometimes in situations where I want to give the freedom to the musicians in the studio to be as creative as possible, but that can also take in many different directions. So what I tend to do is I first make sure that I have a good take or two of the initial idea that we started with the song, and then once we have the good foundation and everything is recorded properly and we have the good bass, then I let musicians get as creative, and then there's always something like Kenny said, something magical that happens, which can open up the song to a new kind of sound. And often I find that these kind of accidental situations stay in the song production, but there is a bit of balance of structured recording and freedom to improvise, especially if there's a certain time in the studio that you have, or more songs on that day. So but yeah, it's quite fun, but also sometimes stressful.
Yeah, but I can also imagine, especially if you spend too much time improvising, you can probably lose focus too, and you can be like, there should be kind of a unified vision or unified kind of structure. And I've seen like comedy films where the director is just like, we're gonna just let the cast improvise, and sometimes it works, like Curb Your Enthusiasm. But there's maybe some movies where just like you lose the focus of it, and it's kind of all over the place. Everyone's bringing their own things, and it's just a bit too. Everyone's kind of speaking at the same time. It kind of feels like. So yeah, I can definitely see work, and you have to kind of rein it in a little bit for sure. So yeah, speaking and just speaking of things maybe that could go wrong or something difficult, I'm wondering if you've encountered maybe a challenge on your project, something that you got stuck with, something that you hit like a wall, that maybe creative, something that you couldn't figure out, that the collaborative process helped you. Somebody else came in and helped you get you over that hump, helped you finish the process, and instead of just not just taking your hand and directing you, but just kind of giving you the tools or the support needed for you to be able to do it. So Yuri, is there something in the world of music editing, an example you can show us or tell us?
Yeah, I'm thinking of quite the challenge. Um, not that long ago, I worked on a show called Halo, season 1. It's the game sort of into a TV series.
Right.
Lots and lots of visual effects. The visual effects calendar stretched beyond even some of the mix dates as the footage would come in. So with visual effects, I know they try as hard as they can, but when the final spaceship flying and it's all done gets dropped in, it's never exactly replacing what was there before. It might be 3 frames, 4 frames, half a beat. Kenny, 3 frames. You know what that is? It's like,
it's
and it's like every second shot. So all of a sudden you have a 3-minute battle cue, and every 15 to 20 seconds there's a 3-frame cut. And normally I do my own conforms, but by this time the show's mixed. So I've got to collaborate with the re-recording mixer, their mix assistant. The re-recording mixer says, Yuri, you got to do my automation data as well. I got Dolby Atmos, rubber banded lines and stuff. So say, yeah, send it over to me. So it's the mix assistant that actually does the conform instead of me. They send it off to me, and then I actually conform the music, and at the same time all the automation data as well. And then I do what I have to do. 3 frames here, that's half a beat. Well, I don't know. If the cue is sustaining, it's a piece of cake. You just do a crossfade and away you go. But most of the time, it's got a pulse, and you can't. It has to. So it becomes this kind of a Rubik's cube, and then the other complexity, unfortunately, is the picture editor sees these drop-ins and says the timing is now off, and then they go in and mess with it. So it's really tough to get to have a locked picture unlocked for you, to then have to fix it into its new position after the mix is done. It's welcome to 2023. This is the reality. DAWs are incredibly capable, and we just have to rise to the occasion and roll with it. And that's kind of where music editing has become, and it's still an incredible challenge. I don't take it lightly, but I kind of enjoy it. It's like, if someone throws you a puzzle, you either like, I hate this and I don't want to do it, or bring it on. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just did the liner notes for Entrada's release of The Rock, the expanded score from Hans Zimmer, Nicolai Smith, Hans Zimmer, Harry Gregson Williams, and just interviewing them about it, doing the liner notes. And I talked to John Finkley, who was music editor on that with Bob Adamy, and Harry pointed out, which I didn't even think of, he's like, that was kind of the mid to late 90s when NLEs like started like really taking off, and it was like a shock to the composer that they would like do something and it would be in the edit and completely change the next morning, and they would have to like redo it, and they're like, what, like kind of just like, so. And that was in the that's a crazy Bruckheimer production in the 90s. I can't imagine today where those schedules and how far technology has come since then, where so much can change so quickly and you just have to like keep up with it. So for sure, it's just a challenge. And then so Kenny, from your point of view, is there something maybe from 99 or another project that something that a problem that you had to encounter, that collaboration or somebody that you relied on to help you kind of get over that hump?
Oh yeah, for sure. So not on the 99, but the previous project that Alberto and I did together called Gatlop, there was we were kind of at the very end. Both of us were just exhausted from having reviewing music cues for several days straight and just trying to get the last one in before a mix. And we were at this last cue, kind of a innocuous one that happens early in the picture, and it just was not working for whatever reason. You know, we did like one that's kind of the temp sounding ish, and then another one that something that I thought would work. But then I had this other version in my back pocket, and this goes to Yuri's point of, you know, keep every version and have it all ready to go. I just said, you know, I've got this one, it's kind of silly. It doesn't really fit the rest of the score, so it's gonna stick out a little bit. And I played it for him, and he said, this is perfect, this is what it needs to be, and it provided a lift for that movie in that moment, because it's Gatlop is a horror comedy genre, so kind of a and it's a really funny one too, so kind of an unusual pairing there. And this was kind of the cue that acted as a good, you know, keystone for a lot of the other things in it. And yeah, just kind of being able to think on our feet and read each other's minds through some kind of entanglement there was what made that work.
Yeah, absolutely. Dina, for you, was there something on a project that you recently worked on where you hit a wall and somebody had to help you over?
Yeah, actually, it happened in the last song, Moment, which we actually got the award also on the HIMA this year in the jazz category, but it was almost accidental in a way, because we scheduled a recording session with rhythm section, and in the afternoon string section was supposed to come for their part, and then during the recording session midway, luckily we were able to do the rhythm section, but then unfortunately the sound engineer wasn't feeling well, and we had to end the recording session earlier, so I ended up basically trying to make the track work with what we had so far, but changing the way it sounded made it almost it opened up a different way of the song production in the end, and it could all be quite different than what we imagined, but it turned out quite well, even just with the rhythm section and with the voice over it. So yeah, it's just adapting to the moment with what's happening, and trying to make everything work in the end, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alan, for you, I'm sure you rely a lot on Dina as kind of your collaborative like support and help you. But is there, in your process, like is there an example or time where you've had to have somebody come in and kind of help you over a wall that you're hitting?
Well, I'd like to avoid challenges as much as possible. Let's say that first, okay? But we did venture into doing some videos for some of our artists, and there's one coming out now. I'll just do a little plug here. In late November for a wonderful lady, a Japanese artist called Utaku Toyoma, who actually is doing a song called I See You. We said, let's do a video. It's a really good song. It comes with a video. Let's do a video. So I managed to hire for a couple of days one of the actors in The Witcher. And she's a really class actor. And we did these shots inside and outside. And they completed the whole thing, and it was all a really lovely package. And at the end of it all, and this comes back to empowering artists, if you like, Utako wasn't too keen on the fact that we actually missed out having a couple of extras in a very, very crucial shot. So having done the whole take, everything's ready, we had to kind of redo it, reshoot a certain part of it. Fortunately, the guy that was doing the video for us had a couple of friends living nearby. We got the right day, the right weather, the right tidal flow on the river, which was nearby for this particular shot, and we were able to sort of slip it back in. But I mean, I guess that taught me that, you know, you've got to kind of like venture carefully into areas where you haven't trod before. And this video stuff was one of the first, and it's going to be a success. So watch out for it, please. But it's a challenge. I like to avoid challenges.
Yeah, avoiding challenges is great, but the problem with challenges, they always pop up when you least expect it. You can plan all you want, you can plan, and you'll be like, this is a sure fail safe, and then something will fucking go wrong, you know, just like. But so yeah, I I want to wrap up our conversation. Thank you for sharing so much about your insights and everything, but you know, we're kind of going through this crazy shift in our industry. So much change is happening. You know, we went through these two very kind of long, hard-fought strikes that were very, important. And I'm so happy that the WGA and SAG got what they're done. But I really see them as fighting kind of for everything that was happening. So, and it affects all of us. So I'm curious, if you have any tips for people who are coming into the industry and maybe maybe it's I guess the way to look at it is what are kind of the good things that are happening, and maybe what are the things that are we still need to look at. Like, what are some good things that you would say to somebody, like, these are some good things that are happening right now and that we need to build on. These are some things that I'm seeing that maybe still need some work. So maybe Yuri, if you want to, from your perspective, what are some good things, what are some bad things in the industry that you would, share to somebody that's coming in?
Right. The strike is unusual for a strike, but as far as taking time off, I've been through the sine wave of the ups and downs. I would say maybe 5, 6 times in my career. I mean, the pandemic and the strike were too close together.
Very
Normally,
close. Yeah.
5, 6, 8 years goes by, and then you kind of sit around for 3 months. And during that time, you have to go, all right, well, let's upgrade, let's build something, let's calibrate, let's swap a computer, do what you have to do. It was tough that the pandemic and the strike were that close together, and the only advice I have was you got to ride it out, right? The freelance method has always said, have some money in the bank to ride things out. I can't predict this, but kind of like the pandemic did do this, is that when it was over, or when it was deemed to be over, the work kind of comes in like this big wave crashing. It gets busy.
Right.
I'm expecting it to get busy. So really it's about, having the patience to hold on and hang in there, and not be eaten alive by it, just to understand this happens. So when it happened to me back in late 80s and then early 90s, I had a couple of ways. Okay, I'm going to learn real quick, put some money in the bank, and be able to ride it out, 6 months, a year, whatever. And then that way you're just like, okay, well, it's unsettling, I got to get this done, but the work comes back.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Alan and Dina, you're starting a company in a time of change, and working with artists who are kind of underrepresented, or maybe not, can't be, don't want to put in a box. I'm curious, what are kind of some tips or things that you want to give to artists, or some things that you love seeing, or some things that need to work on? I'm curious from your perspective.
Well, yeah, in terms of just empowering artists, like we said in the beginning, we want to be able to give them opportunity and space to not have to change themselves to fit certain category or a certain niche, just to tick some boxes or get some certain numbers fulfilled. But it is challenging, and it looks like there is not enough space for everyone, but I think everyone has their own audience. It's just finding the right way, so staying true to themselves.
I agree with that completely, because I think studios might make you seem that each movie needs to, be a $300 million movie that grosses $1 billion, and I think that is the absolute way to just collapse everything. Because I think, if you put all your eggs in one basket and something goes wrong, it can hurt everybody. But I'm hoping that the middle ground movie comes back, and more, there's so many unique different genres and artists and styles, and so many people with so many different tastes. And I think I'm hopeful that and I love that what your company is doing, empowering that. So yeah, absolutely. Alan, for you, is that kind of something you're seeing too, just kind of bring that spirit back in?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you when I see, I'm perhaps a bit older than some of you on this panel session. When I see the talent that's there, and the effort that has to go into creating, letting that talent out. People have to do, they have to do lessons and music lessons, and work in a bar and all this kind of stuff. And I think that needs some release somewhere. And I think what I would say is, don't give up. Never give up. If this is what you want to do, don't give up. Stay positive. Because, if you do that, then, the chances are, if you keep on going, something's going to go right for you. That's the way I look at the universe. And I hope I'm on the right track with that.
No, I agree with that completely. And I always tell people to keep it up. Like, I moved to LA in 2011 or to 2010, and a few of my friends lasted 2 years and they went back, moved out. I'm like, it's not for everybody, but like, you work hard. And I tell people, it's like, yeah, your friends who all went to business school will be buying big houses and cars and stuff, and you might be still in a little studio in the valley, but like, I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't, for the journey that I've been on with my friends and working in all of this. And it's like, if you love it and you're passionate about it, the accolades of life. You know, it's what you make of it and what's relative to you. So I think that's a really great way to work at it, and just keep doing what you do, and good things will happen. Yeah. Kenny, for you, what are some things that you would, you know, talk to somebody, the good, the bad, or tips to survive? You know, I'm curious.
Oh, totally. Well, the good thing is, you know, technology has afforded us so much to you know, get your toes in
Yeah.
so many ways. Like there's social media, you can become a video personality on YouTube or TikTok. Studios, like, you know, to have a home studio, you can produce as much as your imagination can allow with not too much equipment. So that's always a plus and a positive. And then, of course, you know, the work that teammates, my group, is doing is also paving the way for when you do get an opportunity to, you know, be a team member for somebody, like as an assistant or an additional writer of some kind. You know, you can be treated well, and you can be paid well and paid fairly. You know, there's the notion that you're lucky to be here is not as prevalent as it used to be.
Yeah.
It's I think, you know, based on what's been happening in the last 3 to 4 years, is that the composers and team leaders are starting to understand and appreciate that, you know, their teams are an integral part of their success, and we're seeing a lot more you know, a lot more displays of that appreciation, especially recently, and, you know, by way of social media, by way of, you know, private email and whatever else, you know. So it's definitely different than it was 5 to 10 years ago.
Yeah, I definitely do agree that I'm seeing more of the big name composers kind of showering you know, pointing the light at their team, and additional composers and arrangers and the mixers and the orchestrators, and where, you know, before it was just like always just one person kind of just basking in the glow. And I think a panel like this showcases how much talent there is going on, and all the collaborative things that are happening, and that, you know, I think it's a similar thing with like one director. It's a director's film. Even I love the auteur theory, and I love a unified vision, but you know, whether it's like a Martin Scorsese picture, it's like, I mean, you know, Thelma doing the editing, and Robbie Robertson doing the score. Like, I love Killer of the Flower Moon, but it's Marty, but it's also everybody. You know, it takes a village to do it. And I think showing that filmmaking is not just one person's vision, and showing that it's just everybody so creatively and just so beautifully working together, and it's I think it's such a beautiful thing. So I wanted to, you know, so thank you so much, everyone, for such an amazing conversation this afternoon. Thank you, you know, Yuri, Kenny, Dina, and Alan, for your insight and your expertise, and you guys are so insightful and so passionate, and it's been such a pleasure to chat with you. And thank you to Impact 24 for helping put this together. And yeah, head back to Film Music Media to check out more panels and interviews. And guys, thank you so much. It's been so great.
Thank you, Kaya.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kay.